Hey, hello, it's me, I'm back, I guess, and today we're gonna make another video. And this video, I was thinking about it for a long time. It's probably not gonna be that interesting because as you can tell by the title, it's going to be pretty simple. But I've been kind of on Final Fantasy Rush as of late. Even bought myself Final Fantasy VI little guide thing book from 1994. Beautiful thing, great artwork. So I decided to make probably two, at the very least, two Final Fantasy related videos. The other one will be coming out later. But today I want to talk about Final Fantasy villains, and I want to rank them. Now, this is nothing special, you've probably seen it around, but I just had this thought and I thought, why not? So I got 25 villains from Final Fantasy. Obviously, those are not all the villains, but I pretty much took all the main villains I could think about and all the just memorable in general villains that I personally thought about. Somehow, while making this, villains from Final Fantasy, what was it, 11, 12, and 13 kinda avoided this list. I'm not sure why, but they're not here, which sucks, but it is power ranking video, and from what I remember, villains in 11, 12, and 13 weren't that strong, I think, at the very least. But with that being said, let's just start. At number 25, I have Yu Yoven, I believe that's how you pronounce it, maybe it's Yan Yoven, and Sin from Final Fantasy X, obviously. Yu Yoven it's pretty much a small insect who can use magic to a certain extent. It's powerful, but it's nothing too crazy, I would say. And it is also capable of creating some of the meat puppets of sorts to use in a battle. As where Sin is this huge whale thing who has high durability and regeneration due to its gravity ability that it uses in order to pull pyroflies to him. So it also can use energy blast things. So it's kind of Sin and not Sin, but Yevon. It's kind of the main antagonist of Final Fantasy X, from what I remember. But yeah, when I compared it to every other villain on this list, it wasn't that special by any means. Therefore, yeah, I mean, it can do something powerful, but yeah, nothing special. And you can notice that throughout this list, there will be some characters on whom I will not be able to comment a lot because it's like, oh, they can do this thing, and that's about it. Now, at number 24, we have Xande from Final Fantasy III. Now, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, Xande. I actually think he's kind of a little bit underrated. I really like his design, and I really like the premise behind his character, that he's this warlock, or mage, I guess. He's not a warlock, he's a mage, who was granted an immortality as a gift, because he was given mortality as a gift, not as some sort of curse, but that drove him insane. And I like that, and it's an interesting concept. Now, as far as fighting goes, he's a powerful mage. He has great destructive magic abilities. He can drain crystals in the Final Fantasy III world to consume their power or energy. And from what I remember, he casted a spell that almost stopped the time in the entire world, aside from a little island where the game takes place. So it's powerful. I mean, you put him in any game, that's some powerful shit. The only problem with Xande is that he doesn't really stack up against other villains once you start going over them. But he's still powerful nonetheless. I would say he's like a mid-tier in terms of strength, which is good. At number 23, I placed Jenova from Final Fantasy VII. Now, Jenova, she was a hard pick because she's not really a villain that fights, but I still found her interesting enough to include. Now, Jenova is this alien kind of thing, and it hates well, at the very least, it hates humanity, or from what I remember, it might also just hate all life in general. Now, how does it fight? Genova is kind of a corpse, or at least that's how we see Genova for the most part. And the way it fights is that it crushes into planet and starts to give out her cells to the planet and living organisms on said planet. Her cells consume the hosts, corrupting them in a sense, and then proceeding to drive them crazy while giving them power. So it pretty much kind of like zombies. And then those zombies are slowly attracted back to her and reunite with her, and this way she destroys the planet. Pretty powerful. But from what I gathered, all you need to do in order to fight against Genova, aside from just power, is stable mind to a certain extent. If you can resist her call, so to say, you should be able to resist her cells. That's kind of what Sephiroth did. That's why I put her above. The reason why I put her above Xande is because Xande has a very fragile mind. So I believe that if he would believe that succumbing to Genoa will give him back his immortality, he would do it without even thinking about it. And Sin and Jan Joven, they are not really sentient, so Genova can destroy those. So yeah, good spot for her. Number 22 is Genesis from Final Fantasy VII as well. Now, Genesis, I was not sure about how to rank him. He's interesting, and as a character, he's interesting. I kind of like him, but in terms of power, he did not show that much. Now, let me take a quick sip of water. There we go. So, in terms of power, he is kinda like Sephiroth before Sephiroth gained his crazy godlike powers, but just weaker. Like, he's fast and strong, but not as strong and fast as Sephiroth, and he can do magic, but the magic is not as potent as Sephiroth's. So he feels like a lesser version of Sephiroth, which is still strong. Now, in the secret ending of the game called Dirge of Cerberus, or yeah, I believe it's supposed to be Dirge, you can see him walk on the water, and as he does that, the water darkens after he walks on it, which might suggest that maybe we will see him again, especially with Final Fantasy VII Remake, and he will do more. I would like to see that. I think he's cool, I think he has potential. But yeah, besides that, Genesis 22, I think it's a fair spot for him. He also won the prize for National Agriculture Award for processed food category. That is an interesting little bit of trivia, if you wish. He was also interested in dumb apples as a kid. Anyhow, next, number 21 is Golbus from Final Fantasy IV. One of the cool looking characters for sure. Now, Golbus is a powerful warlock. He can teleport, do telepathy to a certain extent, and has mind control abilities through Zemus. He also has a shadow dragon that, based on everything I have seen so far, seems to amplify his powers. Golbus does not do anything unique or crazy per se, but Golbus does feel like a very advanced warlock. He's a very powerful mage that can do a lot of powerful things. They're simple, true, but they're still very potent. So I decided to put him as 21 because, you know, he can do some crazy shit. Now, after that, I placed two characters about whom you cannot talk too much, but I still think they deserve to be here for some Final Fantasy XIV representation. At number 20, I have Gaius von Balzar from Final Fantasy XIV. At number 19, I have Niall von Darnus from Final Fantasy XIV. Now, Gaius is a skilled warrior and a skilled marksman who uses a gunblade. After he receives a power-up, he also becomes super fast. He gains pretty much power to use energy blasts, which is pretty standard, but it's something. And he gains power to control blue flames. And he's also a very skilled pilot. Now, once again, nothing special, but it's pretty good. And Niall, in my opinion, is a little bit more unique because of what I believe it's a she, of what she can do. So she can pretty much siphon ether, and ether is like this living energy, if I remember correctly, from Final Fantasy XIV. She can siphon ether and shoot it as energy beams at her enemies. She can do minor teleportations, and after her power-up, she gains an ability to call on small meteors, drain living things of their life energy, and unleash massive fuck-off beams of energy. So she can do a lot of unique things. I think Niall, I think she has potential to be. She wasn't main antagonist of Final Fantasy XIV from what I remember, but she was one of the most crucial antagonists. I think with the abilities that she had, you can put her as the main antagonist of like Final Fantasy like 11, 12, or something like that, 16, because her abilities are pretty cool. She has ability to siphon life and then use this life energy as energy attacks. That is some cool shit. And on top of that, she can use small meteors and she can use teleportation. Like, that's cool. She's cool. I think she's cool. At number 18, I have Zemus. Now, this one is an interesting one because Zemus, he's a powerful mage, but his main speciality, his main power, lies in his ability to mind control people. That's his thing, mind control. That's what he does to Golbez, and that's what he does to Kain through Golbez. Now, the reason why it's interesting is because mind controlling ability relies directly on who he can mind control. If he cannot mind control somebody powerful, he by the extent is not powerful. Also, his mind control is not perfect because there are spells which you can use to dispel it. That's what happens to Golbez. I forget the name of a character, but pretty much in Final Fantasy IV, Golbez gets dispelled of the mind control. And it also seems like powerful emotions can, at the very least, interrupt Zemus's mind control. Now, with that being said, Zemus does have a second form, which is called, Zeramus. Zeramus is this mindless spirit which lived on after Zemus died and was fueled by his anger and hatred for humanity, because he was not human, he was Lunareth, I believe, like a moon person pretty much. Now, as Zeramus, he kind of loses his mind control abilities, but instead he gains a lot of destructive spells and power as far as destructive spells go. It does not feel like he gains any new spells, it just feels like he becomes more powerful and starts using them more. And that's about it. So yeah, Zeramus, powerful mage, and that is about it. He's powerful, does not really do anything unique aside from mind controlling, and that's about it. Now, I place him here because I believe that anyone above him just outdoes him. They can either tank his magic, or they have something special that can ignore it, or they simply have better magic. Now, at number 17, that might be a controversial one, but I place at number 17 Necron. Now, people believe that Necron is the same as Cloud of Darkness, which I disagree with. I believe that Cloud of Darkness is Avatar of Void, and I will talk about her later, but I believe that Necron is more Avatar of Death. First, it will tie in with Final Fantasy IX thematically, since Final Fantasy IX was kind of a lot about death and coming to terms with death. That's kind of was a huge part of Kuja's character. And Necron came after Kuja killed a bunch of people. So you might say that he's Avatar of Death, and he came because he sensed so much death. Now, as far as I can remember, Necron never uses any special super duper amazing death spells during his fights. He mostly uses dark and destruction spells. His magic is insanely powerful, and he does seem to have a really high durability, and he does look pretty amazing. But besides that, I don't see him having anything that would put him higher on the list. He's strong, but he's not special. I feel like Necron is at the top of a mid tier, I would say. But yeah, possibly unpopular opinion. I can already sense people pointing out in the comments why am I wrong, but hey, that's my opinion. Feel free to prove me wrong. Now at number 16, let me take another sip of water. Jesus. At number 16, I have Jet. Now, from what I remember about Jet, he seems to be mostly about physical strength. He is great with his sword, he has insanely high durability, he has a really high strength, he has a lot of skill, and he is something that is called Brutal Blitzer, which means that he plays the Blitzer, which is like a game in Final Fantasy X, brutally, which means that those energy balls which they use, which Tidus uses as well, he kicks them aggressively at the enemy repeatedly in order to combo his attack, to unleash this kind of like a barrage of attacks upon his enemy. That's pretty much what he does. He also has a power-up form when he becomes this amazing looking fucking demon guy, but from what I remember, he only gains more durability and strength once he enters this form, nothing more. So yeah, again, nothing special to write home about. Really strong. And yeah, number 16. Number 15, that one is ironic. Arden Izunia Arden. Now, my boy Arden, what can he do? He can use the same powers as Noctis, as in he can summon those weapons things because they are from the same bloodline, therefore they can use the same ability. Now, on top of that, Arden also has access to this thing called, what's the name? I forgot. Well, I really forgot the name of this thing, and I don't think I wrote it down. I will come back to it later. But he pretty much has access to control over this thing, which becomes a massive antagonist on its own in Final Fantasy 15. I believe it's called Star Scourge, and having control over Star Scourge by pretty much absorbing it into him, it gives him first, yeah, Star Scourge, there you go, I found it. He's Star Scourge incarnate, pretty much. It gives him immortality because his soul is hidden. Therefore, if you kill him physically, he will come back. The only way to kill him is for the true king with Providence to go into this spirit realm thing and defeat him in there. That's what Noctis does in the game. So unless you can do that, Arden is immortal. Now, for anyone above him, it will not matter because they can just defeat him over and over again as much as he can backs. But from anyone below him, I think it's going to be a great amount of trouble. On top of that, he can do teleportation, he can fly, he can communicate as omnipresent voice, he can observe events while remaining hidden, and he can pretty much be a lich and control demon minions through his Star Scourge. He can also, apparently, from what I read, revive dead and brainwash them, which sounds pretty impressive, because this means that he can revive potent fighters and make sure that they will always be his side. So once again, kind of like a lich. So yeah, Arden is pretty much a glorified lich, which I love. Um, his powers are impressive. I will give him that. I feel like people overlook his powers quite a lot because of how the game presented him. So yeah, I think the biggest thing about Arden is the fact that he's immortal to the point where the only way to defeat him is through having completely insane abilities or having this one specific ability. Um, but once again, for anyone above him, I don't believe it matters because they can just defeat him because they're stronger. Now, at number 14, oh yeah, Arden is from Final Fantasy 15 and Jet is from Final Fantasy 10 and Necron is from Final Fantasy 9 and Zemus is from Final Fantasy 4, if I forgot to mention this. Now, Adel from Final Fantasy 8. She is not really crucial from what I remember, but I love her a lot, so I decided to include her as a honorable mention of sorts. I absolutely love her design, and I absolutely love how fucking batshit crazy evil she is. Now, it might seem crazy that I put Adel this high up, but I believe that Adel is a sorcerer, and in Final Fantasy VIII, sorcerer is pretty much a super powerful mage, which by being sorcerer alone, it already makes her really strong. She is super evil, so she does not hold back when she uses her magic, and her magic seems to specialize on a non-elemental attack, so mostly physical. I believe that she's a powerhouse, pretty much, and I do believe that she can clutch a win from Arden, definitely, yeah. I might be biased here because of how much I love her design, but I decided to include her here. Now next, at number 13, we have the creator from Final Fantasy IV, Years Later, I think it's called, something like that. Now, creator is an interesting one. Creator is a god, but more a scientific one in a way. Creator is a god to humans of Final Fantasy IV, but it's not like Creator is this primordial, extra celestial being. Creator is more of just an advanced alien, if anything. Plus, the way Creator behaves is more of a scientist behavior than a deity behavior. Creator is extremely smart, possibly so smart that we cannot even understand its desires and motives, and he can use a high tier magic. The magic is nothing special, but it is very potent and powerful, and Creator was stated to be more powerful than Zemus, and therefore probably by extension I guess Zeramus, which means that its magic was pretty strong. Also, Creator as a one less power up can go insane, becoming even stronger and gaining an ability to create weaker copies of himself, which is impressive. And yeah, I believe that Creator clutches win against Adel, mostly because he can create copies of himself and is a powerhouse, so I believe he can just overwhelm Adel, and that is about it. Now, at number 12, we're close to getting to top 10. At number 12, I have Garland from Final Fantasy 1. Now, Garland is a master swordsman. I believe that Garland is either the best swordsman in all of Final Fantasy, or he is second best swordsman after Warrior of Light. Garland has a sword, a big destructive sword, capable of doing a lot. He is a berserk, which means that he will overwhelm you with aggressive attacks, and he has immortality through a time loop, but I did not include this into his power calculations because his immortality, it gets broken kind of fast, and it's never made into a plot important power. So yeah, it is there, but it's not that vital to our list. Now, what is vital is the fact that he becomes chaos. He becomes a god, pretty much. Though I can argue if he becomes a god, because uh, when you become a god, let's say he becomes a god of chaos, but then he gets defeated. This means that chaos should be banished from the world of Final Fantasy 1. Discord should be banished, but it does not get banished. So I believe that Garland is not god of Discord, but he's more of a possibly demigod. I guess the best word is. So yeah, I would say he's a demigod, chaos. What does he gain when he becomes chaos? He gains an ability to use Discord magic to a very high level. Now he becomes chaos through elements, which is they are a big thing in Final Fantasy 1. Those elements channeled their raw power into him because of his anger, pretty much. So his anger plays a huge role in his powers because it's pretty much what keeps pushing him on. It's his determination, the power behind his strength, and the power behind him becoming chaos. So yeah, powerhouse, batshit crazy, will fight until the last breath, and honorable guy on top of that. And a great swordsman. So yeah, number 12, Garland. Number 11, possibly another controversial one, but now I have here Sephiroth. Now let me stress this thing out. If we would be taking a look at Sephiroth at his weakest, I believe Sephiroth would be way lower in the list. But this list ranks characters at their best. So at their best, what are we looking at here? Well, our big titty goth boyfriend over here, he has Genova cells, but he had them since he was in the womb, which gives him a deeper connection with Genova cells, which means that he's super fast, super strong, super high reflexes, and he's also super smart. He's possibly a genius from what I remember. He has great swordsman skills, third, fourth, something like that, of the entire series, I would guess. He has great hand-to-hand combat abilities, and he has minor teleportation abilities, and he can also fly because of his wing, from what I remember. He can summon angels to siphon life from his opponents and use energy which he siphons from his opponents as attacks. He can also use energy to create shields around him or to empower his sword, something that we see quite often, in fact. Apparently, he can also slow down time for his opponents, which sounds pretty metal, honestly. Like, time abilities are always amazing, but it's hard to ride them in a fair way, but I think that ability to slow down time for one opponent by either slowing down one opponent in time or by slowing time perception for one opponent, I think that's a cool ability, and he can do that, and it's metal as fuck. Now, oh, Jesus, I need another water. Sip. Thank you. Now, after immersing himself into a live stream, he no longer needed materia, which is energy in Final Fantasy VII, I believe, to cast magic, and he was capable of using black materia to cast powerful spells and meteor spell, which is quite famous, and he learned his trump card spell, which is supernova. He also has quite a bit of will, since after being destroyed in a live stream, he still managed to regain his personality and mind, so to say, which is impressive, to say the least. Now, because of his control that he gained over Genova cells, he is capable of creating eldritch creatures in a real world while remaining in the live stream, which is not too strong. They're not super powerful, but it is impressive. And he can read minds, he can manipulate people's emotions, usually dark ones, he can project illusions, minor ones, nothing special, and he has some form of mild telekinesis. Also, I forgot to mention he has immortality because he managed to keep his senses together in a live stream. This gave him immortality pretty much. Now, he never became God, uh, but he came very close to being a god because he absorbed a lot of powers. Now, while he's immortal, because he can, every time he gets defeated, he kind of regains his senses in a live stream. It still takes him a long time to fully come back as a person, and it is never guaranteed that he can do it. So maybe after too many defeats, Livestream can fully absorb his mind, which will fully defeat him. And if he leaves Livestream, he can no longer use those powers. It's not like if he leaves Livestream, he still has those powers. No, if he leaves it, he no longer has those powers, and without them, he is still strong, but he would be much lower on the list, probably somewhere between Gobos or Zemus, you know, Gobos and Zemus. So yeah, that's why I put him, just almost as a top 10. Now, as a number 10, I have Caius Ballad from Final Fantasy XIII, I believe. Now, I haven't played Final Fantasy XIII, and I did not watch Final Fantasy XIII. All of my knowledge about Caius lies in my research, what I did on him, and on few things that my friends who did play Final Fantasy XIII told me about him. Now, from what I read and learned, he's a fighter equal to lightning. He can use potent chaos magic, and then he even gains control over Discord in general by holding Etros hard. He also has immortality as long as Etros heart beats inside his chest. He can also manifest paradoxes in order to fuck up the time, which is impressive. So yeah, he can do a lot of crazy shit. I think the paradox thing is probably the most powerful thing he can do. He is immortal and he's quite ambitious. Now, I don't know if he's ever defeated in Final Fantasy XIII or what happens to him, but it sounds impressive, and he is a top 10. The only reason why he's top 10 is because all the characters above him, they either have enough power to just outpower him, or they have crazy abilities which would allow them to simply defeat him through some smart tactics or the such. Number 9, Emperor Mateus, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, from Final Fantasy II. Now, I will say it right now that, in my opinion, Mateus was fucked over by his game. I believe that writing in Final Fantasy II is not that great. It has potential, but I believe that it's not too good because eventually he gets defeated by Firion and his gang never feels strong enough to actually defeat him. I think that if Final Fantasy II would have gotten a remake, they should rewrite the story and give main characters more power, because you know, it just kind of looks bad on Mateus that he gets defeated so easily by such champs. And I also believe that if you take Mateus and put him in any other setting, like let's say Final Fantasy 5 or 6 or 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, I believe he would do a lot better, because powers, starting from Final Fantasy 5 and later on, powers in Final Fantasy games become much more complex and interesting and bizarre, but powers in Final Fantasy 2 are much simpler. Therefore, like let's say put him in Final Fantasy 7, I can easily see Mateus doing as much as Sephiroth did, but then even more. I can easily see Mateus honestly absorbing Livestream and honestly becoming actual fucking god, which would be crazy. But yeah, that is potential. He has a lot of potential. Sadly, does not all realize, but I still place him number 9 because of what he does, and I feel like people discourage what he did a lot. Now, who is he? He's a powerful mage. He's possibly a warlock, but I'm not sure about that. He's insanely powerful, he can insanely smart, he can use a lot of spells, and after being killed, he has so much ambition and determination that he splits his soul in 2 halves, and one half went into hell and became a demon and became a ruler of hell, and then got enough destructive power to raise hell to earth and start fighting humans pretty much, while another half became an angel, and became a ruler of heaven and gained insane amount of light uh, spells, control over light spells and the such, which means that Emperor Matthias is literally a villain who can use light magic against you, which is quite unique if I say so myself. Now, he never becomes a god because it's not like he becomes devil and a god, it's kind of like he becomes an angel and a demon. So that's there. And the reason why I put him so up high is because first of all, he's a powerhouse. Second, he's really smart and ambitious. And third, which is possibly the most important, he's very versatile. He has he can do dark magic, destructive magic, but also he can do light magic. Like, imagine if he ever would be able to merge himself, like his angel and his demon sides would merge. Like, imagine what kind of shit he would be able to do from there. So yeah, pretty insane. After him, at number 8 from Final Fantasy IX, I have Kuja. Fabulous, amazing character. Would love to do character analysis on him. Now, Kuja, he's a powerful mage, a genius, and he also knows technology, which is pretty good as well. He can control monsters and dragons, and on top of that, he is really durable. Like, he's surprisingly durable. Like, he can take a lot of punishment and just shrug it off. Now, when he becomes truly powerful is when he enters his trance. Trance is pretty much a way of him to gain an insane amount of power up. Like, he becomes insanely strong at this point. So strong, in fact, that he can cast Ultima, and Ultima is this powerful destructive spell. I believe it's the most destructive spell in Final Fantasy, but I might not be sure about that. But it's very powerful, it's at the top, and he can cast Ultima that is powerful enough to destroy Earth, or the planet where the game was taking place. Sorry, not the Earth. So yeah, a powerhouse and a genius at that, and a little bit insane, and a lot bit fabulous. So yeah, Kuja. Above him, at number 7, I have Chaos from Final Fantasy Dissidia. Now, Chaos is a sad boy, and on top of that, Chaos is kind of like a god on acid. Chaos is a biological weapon turned into god by being trapped in a cycle of fighting where his power grew. By the end of Dissidia, he actually becomes the actual god of Discord. His power is so high, in fact, that he gains an ability to travel through dimensions, which is considered very powerful. It's like on par with time manipulating abilities pretty much. He is actually the reason why Garland was sent back in Final Fantasy I, and why Garland became God of Chaos. He's the reason why, because they were friends. He is extremely powerful, can travel through Rift, insane physical power, insane magical power in the form of controlling Discord, and yeah, he becomes an actual god of Discord. That is pretty impressive. It takes, I believe, what was it? 13 heroes to defeat him, which is impressive. At number 6, I have Kefka from Final Fantasy VI, which is quite ironic as well. My god, Jesus. Anyhow, Kefka, he starts out pretty weak, then he becomes quite a potent mage. Nothing impressive, but quite strong in his own right. He can do some strong spells, but he has high durability, which is the reason why he never dies, even though he loses quite a lot. But when he becomes truly impressive is when he becomes God. And he becomes God by absorbing magic power from the 3 triads, I believe that's what they're called, in Final Fantasy VI world. Those are pretty much the gods in actual gods in the Final Fantasy VI, and he actually absorbs their power to the point where when they are destroyed and the main heroes think that without them Kefka will not have his power, Kefka still has his power because he just absorbed it. Uh, what can he do? Well, I have a little list, so let me read what he can do once he becomes a god of magic, an actual god of magic. And I can say that he's an actual god of magic because once he dies, magic dies with him, which means he's an actual god of magic. So he can do elemental manipulation, power bestowal, and magical absorption. His telekinesis is strong enough to levitate debris from entire world to form his tower. He can project a pyramid-shaped magical fields around him. He has become able to use the most powerful magical attacks, including Ultima, and he's even capable of developing his own spells, creating a spell called Forsaken. He is capable of projecting the Light of Judgment, a devastating ray of energy capable of heavily damaging dozens of towns, doing so to smite those who do not agree to his desires. That is directly from Vicky, and on top of that, he can also create his own minions, and he is capable of summoning heartless angels to sap his enemies of their strength. So, to put it lightly, Kefka can do everything magic related. Like, if it's magic, Kefka can do it. Dark magic, lightning, fire, destructive, telekinesis, whatever you have, Kefka can do that. Now, you might have an argument that we never saw Kefka fight at his full potential, or at the very least we saw him fight at his full potential only at the very end before he was defeated. Maybe true, you can argue that, but for the sake of this list, I will imagine that we saw him at his best at least for a little bit, and that little bit was very powerful, and Kefka very powerful, very potent, and he is possibly the strongest character without becoming OP, because next 5 characters in the top 5 are broken. They have broken abilities. Kefka is the last character to be strong without being completely OP, or completely broken at the very least. Now, at number 5, from Final Fantasy 5, my god, what the fuck is wrong with me by doing this fucking ranking? We have Exdeath, a tree, a splinter. He can cast powerful chaos, discord, dark, destructive magic because he's a powerful warlock. He's possibly the strongest warlock in the whole game, which would make him possibly the 4th or 5th strongest mage, I think, behind the likes of Shototo and Kefka and Emperor and Ultimecia, the such, also Cloud of Darkness, is there. But yeah, very powerful mage by himself, a warlock. He has destructive magic. He has really high regeneration durability, something that has been stated multiple times, because it's been stated that he's taken down multiple times, but he never stays down. He needs very little time to recover from his damage, which is impressive. And he can also shapeshift, which is pretty cool. Once he gains power of the void by merging with it, he gains an ability, aside from general power up, he also gains an ability to erase certain points of time by sending void through time to the point which he wants to erase, which is insane. Now, I'm not sure if he can erase individuals altogether. We do see him do that in Final Fantasy 5, but let's say he cannot do it to Kefka because Kefka is a god. Exdeath can still clutch a win by sending void to the point where Kefka was experimented upon and erasing this moment, and if this moment never existed and Kefka never became insane jester mage, he would never become a god. So that's why I believe that Exdeath can clutch a win from Kefka. And then, once he is beaten down enough, he loses control of the Void, and Void absorbs him, and he becomes Neo X-Death, where he gains insane abilities over Void and, well, insane destructive spells, insane dark spells, insane Void abilities, and just he becomes insanely strong. If he wasn't insanely strong already, he becomes so strong that you pretty much need some sort of Deus Machina to defeat him at this point. At number 4, I have Shinryu from Final Fantasy Dissidia. Now, Shinryu is a primal, he is a dragon. I believe that before Dissidia he was already pretty strong and ambitious, and when Dissidia rolled around and he saw a potential to gain even more more strength by siphoning strength and power from heroes and villains by putting them against one another and then taking their memories, he became even stronger. By the time Final Fantasy Dissidia NT rolls around, he is extremely strong and potent, to the point where even though he does not have any insane abilities, aside from traveling the rift, he has he's just an absolute powerhouse. Like, as far as powerhouses go, he's possibly the biggest powerhouse, possibly. It takes 15 heroes, 10 villains, and 2 gods in order to defeat him for good in Final Fantasy Dissidia NT, which is, once again, shows that he is really goddamn strong. Now, granted, the villains that they fight him, they do not fight him at his best. For example, X-Dev does not fight him as New X-Dev, and Kefka does not fight him as God Kefka, and Garland does not fight him as Chaos Garland, you know. I think that if they would have been able to fight him at their best, I think Neo X-Dev got Kefka, got Sephiroth, Chaos Garland, and Emperor as his angel and demon forms with Ultimate and Cloud of Darkness. I think they would be enough to defeat him, but nonetheless, I believe that Shinryu is extremely strong because he's an insane powerhouse of a character. And now we go to our top 3. Now, at number 3, I have Ultimecia from Final Fantasy VIII. Now, she is extremely powerful sorceress with control over time. She uses time spells. Aside from just general dark and destructive spells, she uses time spells. She does not use them a lot, which kind of sucks. She uses them more in Final Fantasy Dissidia, and it kind of sucks that she does not use them as much in Final Fantasy VIII. I think that's because of a poor writing, for the most part. And she can also, she also has some sort of a creation ability, because she managed to create this lion servant out of Squall's mind, pretty much, kind of, which is impressive. But her most impressive thing is time compression. Now, since I'm putting villains at their best here, I will say that she has her time compression ability. And what does it do? Well, it compresses all time to a singular point, and then she absorbs it. This causes you to be shredded. Your body, your mind, your soul, your personality, it is shredded, and she absorbs it, and then she can, with this, recreate time with you gone. So I can see her easily destroying anyone below her, simply because she can just absorb them, shred them, and recreate time without them. Easy. There's only 2 characters above her, because their abilities are even more broken. Now, at number 2, I have Cloud of Darkness from Final Fantasy III. Why? Because Cloud of Darkness is avatar of Void. She is fully immortal, because as long as Void and Darkness exist, she exists. She, in my opinion, she potentially has a complete mastery over dark and destructive spells, because once again, she is Void and Darkness itself. Unlike Necros, who I believe is avatar of Death, she is avatar of Darkness and Void, and I believe that Death is part of Void and Darkness. Therefore, Cloud of Darkness is much stronger. And the reason why Ultimecia does not defeat her is because Ultimecia cannot destroy Darkness as a whole, because Darkness is such a primordial concept, and therefore, as long as Darkness exists, Cloud of Darkness will exist. And yeah, I absolutely love her. Insane powerhouse. She's possibly the biggest powerhouse, honestly. And she's fully immortal. You cannot defeat her. Kind of same as Arden, but the difference is that she's much stronger than Arden. You know. And as number one, that was a hard pick, and it might be controversial, but from everything that I read about her, I believe she deserves this spot. As number one, I put Remedy from Final Fantasy Tactics. Now, she is a fantasy character manifested into reality who can warp reality to create seemingly whatever she wishes, and her power is only uh, limited and therefore nerfed in Final Fantasy Tactics by her ambitions and creativity and desires. Meaning that potentially, if she wants to, she can create a god who has power to, let's say, destroy darkness, or power to be completely immortal and completely all powerful. Like she can do that potentially if she just wants that and she thinks of that, from what I understand. So yeah, once your villain has power to create anything they want, I mean that's some Thanos shit, you know. So yeah, that's why I put her as number one. I might be wrong. Maybe I'm thinking too much of her power, but if I'm correct about it, she's absolutely powerful, and the only thing that limits her is honestly her imagination and her unambitious personality. But if we make a theoretical scenario where she does have ambitious personality, let's say such of Mateus, and she has this creative mind, hell, she can do some crazy shit, and you cannot defeat her, you cannot stop her. And that was it. Uh, was this video stupid, boring, and probably too long? Probably, but I enjoyed making it. It was fun. There was one character who I could not rank, who was Gilgamesh, because Gilgamesh is obviously too strong to rank. He would probably be number 0 because he's an all-powerful, all-seeing, all-knowing entity who cannot be defeated and cannot be bested. And if you win, it's simply because Gilgamesh wants you to win for some grander plot which you cannot understand. And we all know, we 100% know that if Gilgamesh fought Bartz in the CDO12, he would have destroyed that Cherry Boy. And the only reason why Cherry Boy survived is because the Rift decided to save him and take Gilgamesh to another universe, because another reality needed his help. So I could not rank such a god as Gilgamesh. But besides that, if you have any thoughts, leave them in the comments below. I would love to talk about them. If you want to shit on me for my wrong opinion, feel free to do so. I would like to read it. If you want to agree with me, hey, I'm not going to be against that. I hope editing in this video was at least slightly better and audio was slightly better, and if not, I'm sorry. And with that being said, do look out for my next video where I will rank villains from Final Fantasy once again, but this time in terms of their character. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.